it's not. So the people were, building cars, servicing the cars, building houses, fixing houses, making the food, making all the things that people consume. It's messed up to assume that yes, they have to go to work, but you don't. How is that? That is, it's not just a productivity thing. I think it's morally wrong.
Although productivity is definitely impacted too, and the ability of people to learn,
I agree.
and I mean, on and on. Listen, I
mean, look,
people will disagree
making
with
all
me
the
about
things
this,
that people consume.
it's like,
it's
if you want to work at
messed up
Tesla,
assume
you want to
that-
work at SpaceX,
that,
you
yes,
want to
they
work
have
at
to go to
Twitter,
work, but you
you got to
don't.
come into the office every day.
How is that? That is,
yes,
it's not
I mean,
just a productivity thing.
like,
I think
I'm
it's
not saying,
morally wrong. I'm saying, like, look, put 40 hours in, and frankly, it doesn't even need to be like, Monday through Friday. You could work Monday through Thursday, and I'm also not saying no one should take. I mean, I think people should take vacations. Like I work 7 days a week, but I'm not expecting others to do that.
How much sleep do you get, by the way?
About 6 hours.
You do 6 hours typically?
Yes.
No, that's not bad. I thought it would be less.
I've tried less, but my productivity, even though I'm awake more hours, I get less done.
Okay.
And the brain pain level is bad if I get less than 6 hours.
But you work 7 days a week.
Yes.
Yeah.
I actually only, in terms of actually, you say, like, how many days in a year do I not put in some meaningful amount of work? It's probably about 2 or 3.
Right. 2 or 3 days.
A year.
Yeah. A year. Yeah.
Yes.
I want to get to some more specific questions about Twitter that sort of have a more global aspect. And I still want to get to AI. You're going to give us some time here? Can we still?
Yeah, I think we've got a board meeting coming up, but I'm happy to give as much time as reasonably possible. I think it's maybe at 6 or something.
Okay. Well, what time is it now?
It's 5:42.
All right. I'd love another 20. Can you spare another 20?
Yeah, sure.
All right. At least 20. Great. Let's talk about free speech a bit. You call yourself a free speech absolutist. You want Twitter, and this is
aspirationally.
Aspirationally, you want Twitter to be as truthful as possible, the most accurate source of information about the world. So what does that mean for how you police lies on the platform? You mentioned community notes. Is that the extent of it?
I think community notes, yeah. I mean, I'd say, so my overall kind of vision for X or Twitter is to be a cybernetic collective mind for humanity. This is going to sound quite esoteric and sci-fi, but in pursuit of that objective, you want to have information move quickly, have that information be accurate, and you want to have error correction on that information. So you can think of community notes as like an error correction on information in the network. And the effect of community notes is actually bigger than it would seem. It's bigger than the number of notes, because if somebody knows that they're going to get noted, they are less likely to say something that is false because it's embarrassing to get community noted.
Okay. But if somebody...
and that applies even to advertisers, by the way.
Right.
We've lost that's so far $40 million in advertising.
Because it was misleading, or because a community note said it was?
The community notes, they got two pretty big advertisers got community noted, and yes, I think on balance the community notes were correct, and I did say to those advertisers, look, just go on Twitter and provide some facts that contradict the community note. That's the way to deal with the community note, is to say, is that the community note is saying that the ad is misleading for the following reasons. If you've got information that rebuts that note, then just add that to the ad.
Okay. Well, we're coming up on an election. I mean, it's a ways away, but it's going to all start.
Yeah.
President Trump is allowed back on the platform. He hasn't actually come back.
Right.
But one would imagine if and when he does, or there are others who will say 2020 election was rigged. Is that something, I assume that's not something you believe?
Well, I think the answer is nuanced. Like, do I believe Biden won? Yes, I believe he won.
And you voted for it.
I did, actually.
Do you regret that?
I mean, man, I wish we could have just a normal human being as president. That's what I want. I think if we could, there's that old saying of like, we're better off being run by people picked at random from the phone book than the faculty of Harvard.
Yeah.
I don't know who said that, but it was someone very wise. And I would say if we could do that for the president, that would
You
be
think
great.
that would be beneficial? So you're not, obviously you're not happy with Biden.
Don't we all just want a normal human being to be
Whatever
the president?
that means, whatever, I'm not even sure anymore what normal means.
No, but I mean, like, just, I don't know, just sort of.
You want somebody who's competent.
Yeah,
that's helpful.
Yes, I think definitely somebody's executive ability is underrated. Since the president is effectively the chief executive officer of the country, it actually matters if they are a good executive officer.
Yeah.
It's not simply a matter of do they share your beliefs and
I'm not even sure.
But are they good at? No, but I mean, like, just getting things done. There's a lot of decisions that need to be.
You want somebody who's competent.
Many of them are unrelated to definitely moral beliefs. Somebody's executive ability is underrated since the president is and you just want a good executive of the country. It actually matters. They're CEO of America. Executive.
They are.
We want a good CEO of America who's going to be an effective.
Unfortunately, we live in highly partisan times where there is war about everything, including ideas, including the truth, which gets back to it's not true that the election in 2020 was rigged. It wasn't stolen. And I wonder on the platform, when you see that, does that end up in a community note or is that something you take more action on? And obviously that applies to so many.
I mean, to be clear, I don't think it was a stolen election. But by the same token, if somebody's going to say that there was never any election fraud anywhere, this is obviously also false.
Yeah.
If 100 million people vote, the probability that the fraud is zero is zero. There's going to be,
of course, there's always going to be some.
A little.
Is it going to, right? I mean, the tiniest bit, perhaps. I mean, this election was audited. It was so many judges. I mean, it went on and on and on, and there was nothing whatsoever that. I don't want to debate this with you. My question is more about.
I think it's important to say, like, that in any given election, even if you try your hardest, if you've got 100 million votes, there's going to be some amount of fraud that is not zero. And that it's important to acknowledge that without saying that the fraud was of sufficient magnitude to change the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
So my opinion would be that there was some small amount of fraud, but it was not enough to change the outcome.
Right, and by the way, it might have been either way. I mean,
Yeah, there's probably a little bit of each way.
But again, it's going to be you're going to let people say that though on Twitter, and then you're going to hope that they're corrected.
They will be corrected.
They will be.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Let's talk a bit about your tweets. Because it comes up a lot. Even today, it came up in anticipation of this. I mean, you do some tweets that seem to be, or at least give support to some who would call others conspiracy theories.
Well, yes, but I mean, honestly, some of these conspiracy theories have turned out to be true.
Which ones?
Well, like the Hunter Biden laptop.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that was a pretty big deal. There was Twitter and others engaged in active suppression of information that was relevant to the public. That's a terrible thing that happened. That's election interference.
But how do you make a choice? You don't see. I mean, in terms of when you're going to engage. I mean, for example, even today, Elon, you tweeted this thing about George Soros. Well, I'm looking for it because I want to make sure I quote it properly. But I mean, you know what you wrote. But you basically.
It reminds me of Magneto. This is like, calm down, people. This is not like made a federal case out of it.
You also, you said he wants to erode the very fabric of civilization, and Soros hates humanity. Like when you do something like that, do you?
Yeah, I think that's true. That's my opinion.
Okay, but why share it? Why share it? Especially, why share it when people who buy Teslas may not agree with you, advertisers on Twitter may not agree with you. Why not just say, hey, I think this. You can tell me. We can talk about it over there. You can tell your friends. But why share it widely?
I mean, this is freedom of speech. I'm allowed to say what I want.
You absolutely are. But I'm trying to understand why you do, because you have to know it's got it puts you in the middle of the partisan divide in the country. It makes you a lightning rod for criticism. I mean, do you like that? People today saying he's an anti-Semite. I don't think you are.
No, I'm definitely. I'm like a pro-Semite, if anything.
I believe that probably is the case.
Yes.
But why would you even introduce the idea then? that would be the case.
I mean, listen, we don't want to make this a George Soros interview.
No, God, no. I don't want to at all. But what I'm trying, even came up though in the annual meeting. I mean, you know, do your tweets hurt the company? Are there Tesla owners who say, I don't agree with his political position because, and I know it because he shares so much of it? Or are there advertisers on Twitter that Linda Yaccarino will come and say, you got to stop, man. Or, you know, I can't get these ads because of some of the things you tweet.
You know, I'm reminded of there's a scene in The Princess Bride, great movie, where he confronts the person who killed his father. And he says, offer me money, offer me power. I don't care.
So you just don't care. You want to share what you have to say.
I'll say what I want to say, and if the consequence of that is losing money, so be it.
Okay. But I mean, when you link to somebody who's talking about the guy who killed children in a mall in Allen, Texas, and you say something like it might be a bad psyop. I'm not quite sure what you meant, but.
Oh, in that particular case, there was somehow that's not that that obviously people were killed, but it was, I think, incorrectly ascribed to be a white supremacist action, and the evidence for that was some obscure Russian website that no one's ever heard of, that had no followers, and the company that found this is Bellingcat.
Right.
And do you know what Bellingcat does? PsyOps.
Right. I couldn't really even follow exactly what it was you were trying to express there, so that's in part why I was curious.
I'm saying that I thought the ascribing it to white supremacy was bullshit.
Okay.
And that the information for that came from an obscure Russian website and was somehow magically found by Bellingcat, which is a company that does PsyOps.
And there's no proof, by the way, that he was not.
There's no. I would say that there's no proof that he is.
And that's a debate you want to get into on Twitter?
Yes. Because we should not be ascribing things to white supremacy if it's false.
Okay. Can we talk about AI now?
Sure.
Actually, I want to talk about AI. Well, let me end with Twitter in the sense of Sam Altman was on the Hill today, and he said AI's ability to manipulate interactive disinformation is a significant area of concern. It's yes. Moving so quickly.
It is a significant area of concern.
And how, you know, I'm curious as to whether you agree with that, how you see that even playing out on Twitter with people who, who knows, somebody could, you know, look like you and or me and use our voice. I don't know what it could be.
Oh, that is happening big time. So the reason that I'm asking people to be verified on Twitter and that we're saying, okay, verification means you've got a phone number from a reputable carrier, which means that you've at least passed through whatever their security mechanisms are, that you have a credit card, so you now have passed through whatever security mechanisms the credit card company has, and that there's some small amount of money paid per month. That set of actions significantly increases the cost of fake accounts, and with the latest AI, it can bypass basically every test for are you a human. So then how do you know that a million accounts were created? How do you know that those are people?
I don't know. How do you?
Exactly. You have to do account verification. The thing that makes I sort of put myself in the position of, like, if it was my goal to manipulate public opinion and create millions of accounts and make it seem as though a topic was trending, and that this is actually what the public believes, But in order to do so, I had to get 1 million phone numbers, 1 million credit card numbers, and pay $8 a month.
Right.
And have that all not be traceable and clustered, I would say it's impossible. Impossible. So the goal of the sort of Twitter verification is fundamentally to prevent AI manipulation of the system.
Got it. Final question on Twitter. Walter Isaacson, your biographer, he said your big goal for Twitter is disrupting the banking industry.
Well,
is that accurate?
I'd say that's a. Look, first of all, I don't want to disrupt something for the sake of disrupting it. It's more like if there is a better product, that's great. But I'm not out for disruption for the sake of disruption. I'm like, if we can make a product that improves quality of life for people that they find more useful, that's great. What people see in PayPal is sort of like a halfway. It's frankly sort of a half-baked version of what it could be. And so I think there's potential to create a more efficient financial system. And here we can get, again, quite esoteric into sort of information theory. But the actual financial system today is a heterogeneous set of databases running on mainframes and COBOL that still engage in batch processing. It's really quite very inefficient. So things are still not real time, and so it's possible to have a much more efficient, homogeneous real time data system. Money is just information, and so but that's not like the only reason. It's just a thing that would be, I think, poetic to fulfill ultimately the vision that I had for X over 23 years ago,
right.
and actually see that come to fruition would be nice. But there are many other things for Twitter. It's not just financial stuff.
Well, you talk about enhancing humanity. I'm curious then about AI, which many people say will lead to great productivity gains. You showed those robots. I mean, I can imagine what they conceivably could do when powered by AI. But I'm also curious, because you've certainly been concerned, what percentage do you give the chance that it will destroy humanity?
Well, the advent of artificial general intelligence is called a singularity because it is so hard to predict what will happen after that. I think it's very much a double-edged sword. I think there's a strong probability that it will make life much better, and that we'll have an age of abundance. And there's some chance that it goes wrong and destroys humanity. Hopefully that chance is small, but it's not zero. And so I think we want to take whatever actions we can think of to minimize the probability that AI goes wrong.
And you've called for a pause, along with a number of other people.
Yes, look, when I called for a friend of mine, Max Tegmark, is a physicist at MIT, wanted me to sign on to the letter. And it's like I knew it would be futile.
It is futile.
It's futile. I knew it would be futile. I just wanted to call it like it's one of those things. Well, for the record, I recommended that we pause.
Okay.
Did I think there would be a pause? Absolutely not.
So, but you're starting XAI. I think that's what you're calling it, or some new AI effort. How's it going to be different than OpenAI or Alphabet?
This is not the time to this. It's not. We don't have enough time, and nor is this the moment to really talk about it.
Okay.
We will have a launch event, and we'll explore the issues in more detail. But I should say that and I mentioned this at the shareholder meeting, that Tesla has actually tremendous capability in real-world AI.
Yes.
In fact, it is very far ahead of anyone.
I know people actually on Twitter prior to our interview were saying, he never gets asked about how advanced his AI is at Tesla. You always talk about the other names.
Tesla AI is, like I said, it's like I'm not even sure who's second, frankly.
Why is that? What are people not understanding about what you have, and why are we talking so much about ChatGPT and generative AI, at OpenAI, and what Microsoft's going to be able to do with it, and not about Tesla?
I don't know. I mean, people do talk about it online. I think Tesla will have sort of a ChatGPT moment. Maybe if not this year, I'd say no later than next year.
Wait, say that again. I'm sorry. You're going to have a
sort of ChatGPT moment.
Oh, you will. In terms of suddenly it will.
Yeah, suddenly 3 million cars will be able to drive themselves with no one.
Right. It goes back to that. Right.
Yeah, and then 5 million cars, and then 10 million cars. So, and I would also say that if positions were reversed and say, well, in fact, the positions are reversed. For example, Google has Waymo, which is sort of attempting self-driving, and they are able to make self-driving work in a very limited geography with very tightly mapped streets. But as soon as anything goes wrong with those streets, like there's an accident or a parade or road construction, it stops working. Basically, Google is unable to produce a generalized solution to self-driving that works anywhere. They've been trying to do that for a long time. They've been unsuccessful. Tesla basically has that and is far more advanced than Google.
Yeah.
And so if the positions were reversed and you said, okay, Tesla's got to produce a large language model that has output equal to or greater than ChatGPT, or Microsoft OpenAI has to do self-driving, and we flip the tasks, Tesla would win.
You'd win.
Yes.
You have the computing power and everything else you need to do it.
Absolutely.
I'm being told we don't have that much time. Can you give me another 5 minutes? Or
yeah,
what do you think?
I think so. I do have a board meeting.
I know.
But 5 minutes is probably fine. Sure.
Okay, thank you. OpenAI, I mean, you seem somewhat frustrated with them. You were one of the big contributors early on.
The reason I am the reason OpenAI exists.
How much money did you give
them? I'm not sure the exact number, but it's some number on the order of $50 million. Man, fate loves irony, next level. So I used to be close friends with Larry Page, and I would stay at his house, and we'd have these conversations long into the evening about AI, and I would be constantly urging him to be careful about the danger of AI, and he was really not concerned about the danger of AI and was quite cavalier about it, and at the time, Google, especially after their acquisition of DeepMind, had 3/4 of the world's AI talent. They had obviously a lot of computers and a lot of money, so it was a unipolar world for AI, and we've got a unipolar world, but the person who controls that does not, or at least did not seem to be concerned about AI safety. That sounded like a real problem. So, and then the final straw was Larry calling me a speciesist for being pro-human consciousness instead of machine consciousness. And I'm like, well, yes, I guess I am. I am a speciesist.
So you helped to the creation of OpenAI. You put in as much as $50 million.
More than helped. It wouldn't exist without me.
It wouldn't exist without you. So
I came up with a name. Right. The name OpenAI refers to open source. So the intent was, what's the opposite? What's the opposite of Google? Would be an open source nonprofit, because Google is closed source for profit, and that profit motivation can be potentially dangerous.
Should you have gotten governance for that money? Should you have gotten some level of control, perhaps, in retrospect?
Yeah, I fully admit to being a huge idiot here. Anyway, so OpenAI was meant to be open as an open source. It was created as a 501c3, so part of it is also, in the beginning, I thought, look, this is probably a hopeless endeavor. How could we possibly compete with? How could OpenAI possibly compete with Google DeepMind? I mean, this seemed like an ant against an elephant, which is not a contest. and I was also, I was instrumental in recruiting the key scientists and engineers, most notably Ilya Sutskever. In fact, Ilya went back and forth several times because he would say he's going to join OpenAI, then Demis would convince him not to, then I would convince him to do so, and this went back and forth several times, and ultimately he decided to join OpenAI, and really Ilya joining was the linchpin for OpenAI being ultimately successful.
So you're very disappointed in what's happened there in terms of it becoming a for-profit. Do you take any action? Do you sue them in some way?
I do think that there's some. Look, it does seem weird that something can be a non-profit, open source, and somehow transform itself into a for-profit closed source. I mean, this would be like let's say you funded an organization to save the Amazon rainforest, and instead they became a lumber company and chopped down the forest and sold it for money. And you'd be therefore like, well, wait a second, that's the exact opposite of what I gave the money for. Yeah. Is that legal? That doesn't seem legal. And if it is, and in general, if it is legal to start a company as a nonprofit and then take the IP and transfer it to a for-profit that then makes tons of money, shouldn't everyone start? Shouldn't that be the default? Right. And then I also think it's important to understand the like when push comes to shove, let's say they do create some digital superintelligence, almost godlike intelligence. Well, who's in control? Yeah. And what exactly is the relationship between OpenAI and Microsoft? And I do worry that Microsoft actually may be more in control than, say, the leadership team at OpenAI realizes. I mean, Microsoft, as part of Microsoft's investment, they have rights to all of the software, all of the model weights, and everything necessary to run the inference system.
So they essentially have a great deal of control.
At any point, Microsoft could cut off OpenAI.
Elon, I'm being told we have to wrap up. Your board has been very sure. patient. I want to end on one AI question. You have a lot of kids. I have some kids. I have one who's actually soon to go into the workforce. I struggle with how to advise him about a career when this technology exists and will only improve. I'm just curious, when you think about advising your children on a career with so much that is changing, what do you tell them is going to be of value?
Well, that is a tough question to answer. I guess I would just say, to sort of follow their heart in terms of what they find interesting to do or fulfilling to do, and try to be as useful as possible to the rest of society. If we do get to the sort of like magic genie situation where you can ask the AI for anything, and let's say it's even the benign scenario. Let's say it's a benign scenario. How do we actually find fulfillment? It's how do we find meaning in life if the AI could do your job better than you can? I mean, if I think about it too hard, it frankly can be just dispiriting and demotivating. Because, I mean, I go through. I've put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into building the companies, and then I'm like, wait, well, should I be doing this? Because if I'm sacrificing time with friends and family that I would prefer to do, but then ultimately the AI can do all these things. Does that make sense? I don't know. To some extent, I have to have deliberate suspension of disbelief in order to remain motivated. So I guess I would say just, work on things that you find interesting, fulfilling, and that contribute some good to the rest of society.
Okay. Well, that's a great place to end. There's so much we didn't get to. I hope you'll give me another chance to sit down with you. But Elon, thank you for being so generous with your time. Thanks to your board for waiting as well. And thanks for having us here at this incredible facility. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
Pleasure. Carl, I'm going to send it back to you. Board members.